It's now my pleasure to introduce our moderator of the day. I hope some of you already know Cheryl Beversdorf, who is the producer and host of Aging Matters, a weekly radio podcast presenting interviews with guests who provide very important information about aging-related topics for older adults and families and caregivers. Cheryl also produces and hosts a monthly television program called Aging Matters, which offers interviews with aging experts and demonstrations of how aging-related subjects benefit older adults' lives. So Cheryl, thank you so much. And Cheryl is a member of the Commission on Aging as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. It's a pleasure to be here, and we are very excited about what's going to happen today. And so we're going to run through what the directions are for our panelists, and then we'll get started. So here's what's going to happen. First of all, each candidate will give 1 minute introduction, and Carlos, of course, is our timekeeper, and he will show a green light after 30 seconds and then the red light. So you've got 1 minute to tell everything you want folks to know about before we get started. Carlos obviously is going to be the official timekeeper for the responses. A green light will appear at 1 minute, followed by a yellow light at 1.5 minutes, and then the red light will go on at 2 minutes. If you keep talking after a red light, I will have to ask you to stop. So here's what's going to happen. We have 7 questions that we have prepared in advance. The candidates will speak in alpha order of their last names. So, of course, we'll start the first question with Maureen, and then the second question with Susan, and the third with Natalie, and on. So, and I will rotate each time. And then after the initial 7 questions, I will entertain some questions from the audience, and Linda will help on that, and Carlos will give me that information, and we will continue that rotation. And then finally, we will plan to be stopping about 3:20, and that at that point, each of you will have 1 more minute then to give a closing statement. And again, we'll cut you off after a minute. So, hopefully we won't have any problems. So with that, any questions, or shall we get started?
They'll need to share that microphone.
Okay.
That's a friendly.
Okay. So, all right. Well, then to get started, first of all, Maureen, give us your 1 minute intro.
Thank you.
There we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Maureen Coffey. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. I'm one of our 6 candidates for Arlington County Board. I moved to Arlington in 2017 after growing up a little further out in Northern Virginia. I have 3 generations of my family within about 30 minutes of here, including my grandparents who are aging in place in the home that they bought in the 1960s. I jumped into this race because of the issues that are facing so many of us. It is increasingly hard to stay in Arlington. Affordability is a problem, and we don't really have a plan for how we're going to address that. As someone on the early end of my life cycle here in Arlington, that really concerns me because I love it here. This is my home, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. But I also can't really imagine how I'm going to stay if we stay on the path that we're on. I think that that's true for everyone, regardless of where we're at in the life cycle here in Arlington. It's getting more expensive. It's getting harder to stay put. And we really owe it to ourselves to have the answers of how we're going to get from where we are currently as a community to where we need to be in a way that serves everyone's needs comprehensively. I look forward to sharing more with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Susan.
Susan Cunningham. All right, I'm Susan Cunningham with a microphone. I'm a 25-year resident of Arlington County. I have 2 children in middle school and high school, both girls, over at Arlington and Washington Liberty. And I'm running for office because I think we need more common sense problem solving in our elected body. For me, the missing middle process where we were talking about housing, but not getting all the way to solving housing, was a real call to a real wake-up call that we as a community have hard stuff to grapple with, and we need to really come together to do that. My professional background is trained as an engineer. I have 2 degrees in mechanical engineering from Yale. And then I spent most of my career in problem solving for a variety of industries. So I did a lot of public school reform in Washington, D.C., including building and operating schools in Southeast D.C. Also spent some time at the U.S. Treasury in the Obama administration, and more recently at McKinsey. My work here in Arlington has been a lot of volunteer work across 20 plus years, leading the Dorothy Ham Middle School project, and then more recently, executive director at Thrive.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Susan. Natalie Roy.
Right, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here to talk about older adult issues. My name is Natalie Roy, running for Arlington County Board. I've been here 32 years. I'm a proud boomer. I am an older adult, and this is my first time running for political office. And so that proves the old adage that you're never too old to do something new. The older adults have special things to offer, experience, and I want to be that person, that candidate to do that. I have decades of experience. I've been a community activist, an environmental advocate, an environmental executive. I've been active on the county's COVID vaccination committee. I've been a coach at Yorktown High School for 17 years. You name it, I've done it. I was head of my neighborhood civic association. Experience does count, and so does energy. I'm running to bring new energy, transparency, and responsiveness to the county board. And that is especially important after the last several months that we've had of contentious fighting over upzoning issues. Thank you very much. I look forward to all the Q&A.
All right. Thank you, Natalie. Mr. J.D. Spain.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Julius D. J.D. Spain Sr. I'm a 13-year resident of the Penrose community here in Arlington County. I'm also a 26-year retired Marine who finished up my tour working in the Pentagon. I worked on a diplomatic assignment in Belgium, been on the Senate, worked in the as congressional fellow. So I have about 30 years of policy experience. The reason I'm running for county board is, one, it's multifaceted. Mental health, housing, transportation, a whole host of issues need to be addressed. But for you, our elders, our older, our seasoned people who've been here in Arlington and shaped our community, you need voices at the table and people that respect you at the end of the day. I'm a leader. I just came out of running the NAACP for 4 years. Many of you know our engagement. And if on the county board, I'm a results-oriented leader. My kids went to APS. I'm a community leader. I'm grassroots. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate this opportunity to meet you where you are. And for that, I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, J.D. And the last candidate, Tony Weaver.
Hey, my name is Tony Weaver. I am a local, grew up in Northern Virginia, went to UVA, got a master's degree in business there, and moved out to Silicon Valley, worked in technology, ended up founding a startup, and then coming back to the area to help found my family business. Been doing that as a partner with my mother for the last 10 years. She's here today. And it's been a fantastic experience. During those 10 years, I've been integrally involved in the Arlington community. I've served as the president of the Arlington Rotary Club, somewhat unlikely candidate for that. I have served on the board of directors of the Committee of 100, and I'm a commissioner on the Fiscal Affairs Advisory Commission. If elected, I'll prioritize reducing the commercial office vacancy rate. I'll prioritize education, making sure our schools stay competitive, and I'll prioritize the environment. I'm greatly excited to be here, and I look forward to all of your questions. Thank you.
All right. So now that you've had a good sense of who our candidates are, let's get started. So again, going in the alphabetical order, Maureen, we'll start with you. Question is, what ideas do you have for older adults who want to stay in their homes and age in place?
We'll get a hang of this eventually. Yeah, this is something we're going through with my grandparents right now. Their property tax bill currently is more than the mortgage they had when they first bought the house. And they're on a fixed income, and so it's a little bit scary to see how few options they have. I think one of the biggest things, we need to address housing comprehensively. Right now, we're not meeting our housing needs in really any segment, but definitely not in the hardest to serve segments. Our accessibly designed units are not great. We need to have grants for people to be able to renovate their homes in place. That needs to be an easy process so that you can stay where you are with the accommodations that you need where you already live. And we also need to take a look at the existing tax abatement program that currently is only serving 800 to 900 seniors every year. That's a very low number. As we heard in the introduction, there's a lot of folks in Arlington who are seniors, who are struggling financially. We need to make sure we're actually getting the information to them so that they can apply and be part of this, because the existing program for those who are able to use it is pretty great. But if you don't know about it, if you don't know how to apply, it's not really helping anyone. And so we need to take a look at that, take a look at the design of that, how we can access more people, but supplement it with grants for staying in place as well.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Susan Cunningham, I will repeat the question. What ideas do you have for older adults who want to stay in their homes and age in place?
It's a really amazing question, because Arlington is a great place to be, all ages, and it's a terrific place to spend the last third of your life, right near the museums, right near all of our parks, and with the intellectual stimulation of an incredibly diverse community. Aging in place has a lot of different ways to do it. You guys are doing it here at Culpepper, and that's one way. The single family homeowners are doing it a different way. And what we need to continue to invest in is making sure that there are tools available so that you get to choose your own adventure. That if you want to stay in a home that you've had for a long time, you have capital grants to help put in ramps or to help adjust bathrooms as needed. And that you have connection, because we know the most important piece in all of our lives is being connected to other humans. And Arlington Neighborhood Villages and others do a great job of pushing that in and making it possible for all of us to stay connected to one another. And so if I'm elected, that's going to be a real focus, particularly how to help our young people get more connected to you, so that they can benefit and you can benefit and you can be one community.
Thank you so much. Natalie, did you want me to?
Yeah, I think I remember the question, if that's all right. So what ideas we have for older adults who want to stay in their home? And actually, this is something we just went through with my parents who are 90 years young. They are right sizing. We don't say downsizing anymore. And I am a real estate professional, so that's very key. But one thing I wanted to bring up is when I door knock all over the county, I hear this North Arlington, I hear it in Central Arlington, South Arlington, from seniors who are struggling and who are struggling to stay in their homes and with no place that they can go to. So I put together 4 things. One is that we need more robust outreach to the community around the Arlington County real estate tax relief program that provides exemptions for residents over 65 and also for those who are permanently and totally disabled. We need to do much more on that front. We need to consider implementing additional programs that could provide financial relief to older residents and residents with disabilities. And that means vehicle registration fee relief, solid waste fee relief. We need to then explore ways to enable older citizens to age in the community in affordable multi-age, multi-unit developments, as well as assisted living facilities with accessibility and supportive services. And lastly, we need to explore rehabbing older office buildings. We have right now an alarming rate of commercial space vacancy. We need to be looking at that, and not only for things like affordable childcare and for indoor farming and recreational purposes, but for housing for older adults. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. JD, do you need me to answer?
Yeah, I got you. Thank you very much. So I agree with some of what Natalie just spoke about when we talk about our tax relief program that we already have here in Arlington. if you're elected to the county board, I want to see if we can increase that number and have more people apply to that pool. Across our nation, we've also seen some states put in what we call a property freeze tax, which basically means you don't pay your taxes for a while. And there's certain criteria that leads around that. To something you heard earlier, Arlington is a very high cost of living place. And my mother and father don't know, despite them not living here, I understand how in a high cost of living area, when the property taxes become more than your mortgage, something has to be done. You put in a lot of work here in Arlington, you deserve to stay in place. So different housing options. I know we'll get to housing a little bit later. There's a number of ways that we can help our seniors. But more importantly, we want to raise the application, the pool for property relief tax, and we want to look at ways to freeze it. That's what I want to do.
Thank you, JD. Tony?
Yeah, so this is a problem that my family is personally facing right now. I'm a planner, so although my mother is still a young woman, we're thinking about down the road for her. And one of the challenges, and that it's kind of a catch-22 that we oftentimes run into, is that areas that are reasonably affordable for seniors are also not very accessible. So case in point would be Arlington and other garden-style apartments. Though they are relatively affordable, they're oftentimes located on the second, third set of floor. So making accommodations for that is something that we are really kind of thinking about as a family. And my ultimate solution was I moved half a mile from my mother so that if something would have happened, I would be immediately there. But many folks don't have that luxury. And I think that as a county, we need to be thinking about a number of things. I think that affordable housing grants are one good option that needs to be expanded. That's something that I've looked into extensively with my work on the Fiscal Affairs Advisory Commission. I think we need to better communicate tax deferral programs. We've got some good programs in place, but many folks just don't know about them. They don't know how to make them happen administratively. There's a bit of a burden there. So I think that we need to do a better job in terms of communicating that. And I think bottom line, we need to provide grants that allow folks to make modifications and changes to their homes that make them more accessible, more able for them to stay in age and place. So grants that might provide chair lifts, better bathroom facilities, walk-in bathrooms, those types of amenities that make it much easier for folks to be accommodated. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. The second question, we will be starting with Susan Cunningham. The question is, if you are elected, what would you do in your first 30 days to make Arlington more age-friendly? Susan, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I think there are three quick things that I could do. One is looking across all of our commissions, which are volunteer organizations that advise the board, to make sure that we have representation from each of our elder communities. The second would be looking at the senior loop. I know that we have sort of a 1-year extension on that, but we need to make sure that there's a permanent solution so that we can get to grocery shopping. And then the third is a personal pet peeve, which is the scooters, the rented scooters, making sure that we have the right incentives in place, that they are not left in the middle of the sidewalks. It's really hazardous, and the older you are, the less mobile you are, the more.
Thank you, Susan. Natalie, do you need for me to repeat the question?
If you'd like to, go ahead.
Right. Well, for the purpose of our audience, if you are elected, what would you do in your first 30 days to make Arlington more age-friendly?
I think there's two things I would do. One is immediately really focus on the programs that the county has. We have some awesome 55+ programs. We have neighborhood villages. To me, that these are great programs, and the biggest issue we have is getting the word out. I've heard from time and time again from people, it's all by word of mouth. And I think that the county can do a better job promoting these programs, making sure people know where to go, how to navigate, where to find out, where are these resources, where can we get these classes? I know for me, it's been difficult sometimes to find out where can I go to find out something specific, like about ice skating, in terms of when there are senior rates available. So I think those are the kind of things I would work on that, number one. Number two, I think transportation is critical. We need to make sure and ensure that there's transportation services that people can get to where they need to go. And I think that is just vital. And it's already been talked about on the panel, but I think that is one of the things I would do in the first 30 days.
Thank you, Natalie. Katie.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So it's a tangible, right? So you want to know what we're going to do in our first 30 days. Arlington County right now has a 2020-2023 age-friendly action plan. And so what I would want to do is go in, look at that plan, see what we have done, what we have accomplished. We've heard about transportation and transportation safety. Much of what's in that plan is aligned to my priorities, but I think for anyone, it'd be somewhat naive to make a promise of what you're going to do. But what I'm telling you, I'm going to go in and look at the standing plan that we have right now, see if it's effective, and if we need to go back to the drawing board. That's what I'll do.
Thank you, JD. Tony.
The first 30 days, of course, will be very ambitious. It's a very tight time frame to get much done. But I do think that scooters, that's something that we can get done quick. I think that a lot of people realize that there are many challenges that we're currently facing with scooters being left all over the place, littering sidewalks. We need a way to kind of corral them and get those under control. And I think that's something that in 30 days we can work toward. Not a huge problem. It's something that is bite-sized. We get some solutions in place on that. Bigger picture and longer term, I would like to start sowing the seeds and laying the groundwork for improved transportation for seniors, particularly in senior loop. That's top priority. Also look at affordable housing and make sure we're thinking about that, make sure that gets moved up to the top of the agenda. That may be housing grants, a variety of different options, healthcare, as well as civic participation. I think that that's something that is crucial, particularly for seniors. As president of the Arlington Rotary Club, I was fortunate in that we span a huge range of ages. Our club is a bit unique in that regard. We got 22-year-old, we got 96-year-old members. And I think that there's a huge amount that the next generation can learn from seniors, and everybody can really benefit from having that type of open forum and environment where people can learn each other. So those would be the top priorities for me in the first 30 days, but corralling scooters would be something that's actionable that I think we can actually do in 30 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Finally, Maureen. Want me to repeat the question? All right. If you are elected, what would you do in your first 30 days to make Arlington more age-friendly?
Absolutely. What a good question. This is the second time we've had a similar question about like first 30 days. And I want to be really realistic that 30 days is very fast. And any of us who are new to the board are going to have a lot to get acquainted with in the first 30 days. And so the way that I view that period is really making the investments and starting to get things in motion that are going to really have their robust impact later down the road. And I think the biggest thing that we can do in the first 30 days of 2024 is start talking about a long-term planning process that's actually going to integrate all of our needs when it comes to transportation, when it comes to housing, when it comes to safety. Really getting all 5 county board members on the same page that this is a process that needs to happen if we're going to meet the needs of older adults, but if we're going to meet the needs of any people in Arlington. I think that the most important thing is to start off with everyone agreeing that this process needs to happen so that we can start moving the ball forward to make it happen, to get the answers that we need and put together a concrete plan for how we're going to meet that.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to, thank you, Warren. We're going to move on to question number 3, and we will start with Natalie. And the question is, Will you support the use of Affordable Housing Investment Fund, which of course is also known as AHIF, to support affordable assisted living?
Yes,
Hello. Yes, yes, I would definitely support it. As a real estate professional, I've worked with a number of folks who have really struggled with moving from their single family home to assisted living and trying to look at how the costs can be reconciled for them. And it's heartbreaking sometimes. And I do think that this would be a vital thing for this fund to actually be a part to help fund. I have also been on record saying, as a real estate professional, I negotiate for a living. I really do feel that the county can do a better job leveraging more money from developers for things such as increasing this fund. And so that's one thing that I would be totally on support for and be pushing very strongly for.
All right. Thank you, Natalie. JD.
So those of you that know me, coming out of NAACP, right? Housing is a human right, and the answer is yes. Affordable housing units, assisted living facilities is housing, right? We're not just talking about apartments or a single family home. So to answer that question pointedly is yes. And to something Natalie just said, yes, I agree we should get developers in the process to give more community benefits. Sometimes that have seemed to be challenging for whatever reason, but I will work hard, and thanks for elevating that, Natalie, to demand that developers give more to put into our AF funds. Thank you.
Tony, do you need for me to repeat the question?
Oh, yeah, I've got the question.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally in favor of increasing funds for AHIF for assisted living facilities. I think that we need to really recognize that although AHIF has been very effective over the last 25 years, we've seen a precipitous drop off of market rate affordable units that are available. So the impact has been relatively modest, and we need to recognize as a community that more money needs to get allocated to AHIF if we want to have a real and immediate impact on making more affordable housing in Arlington. So yeah, I mean that would be a top priority for me, funding that in terms of extracting developer concessions. I mean, my colleagues up here have mentioned that. I think that is incredibly important. I think that we should be focused on doing that and demanding that a portion of new development be allocated for auxiliary grant units. I think that is something that will have a real and immediate impact in improving the welfare of seniors here in Arlington. So, bottom line, yes.
All right. Thank you, Tony. Maureen?
Like my colleagues, I also agree. I think that one of the things that we can do with AHIF is change the notice of funding opportunity to make sure that assisted living is one of the opportunities we're encouraging and incentivizing to apply for AHIF funds. But we also just need more AHIF funds. We had a study that showed that we need about $37 million from the county per year into AHIF to meet our affordable housing goals. And this year in the budget cycle, we only put in 15 million. So that's less than half of what we've decided that we actually need. Affordable housing is a huge problem in Arlington. You can't go anywhere without hearing that. And we do need to prioritize assisted living, but that's going to be really hard if we don't have the funds to fund the projects that we need. And so we need to make sure that not only are we changing the opportunity to give funding to assisted living, but that there's actually funds to be given to assisted living facilities. And right now, I think that we're being pulled in so many different directions that without actually increasing our budget allocation, it's going to be really hard to make that happen. So those are kind of the two sides of that coin that I think we need to address. One is the regulatory and process, and the other is just we have to put money into this.
All right. Thank you, Maureen. And finally, Susan?
So I would agree as well that we do need to invest AHIF funds in assisted living. I would also encourage us to think creatively about how we do that. So the assisted part of assisted living can happen in a dedicated facility, or it can be pushed into another facility. And so I was the CEO of our largest affordable housing provider, AHC, and we serve a lot of elders who either came to us as elders or grew into being elders while with us. And again, to the point of connection, if you're able to stay in the home and the community that you know and love, it is better for your brain, it's better for your heart and your soul. And so having services that can push in to support, assist you while living in your original place is great. And we need dedicated facilities as well. So with the AHIP funds, we can ensure both of those are available, ensure there's universal design in all of our affordable units so that they can be used either way, be flexible.
All right, thank you, Susan. So question 4 will be starting with JD, and it also has to do with housing a little bit. And some of you have already mentioned this a little bit, and it's what are your views on making assisted living more affordable in Arlington?
Thank you for the question. You heard that line in Houston, we have a problem. Arlington, we have a problem. We have high demand, low inventory. As we think about assisted living facilities, I am so glad that in this last round of dialogue we had at the county, Missing Middle moved over to expanded housing options. And thanks to Apple and AHC and the Committee on Aging for supporting that, we're going to be able to explore unique opportunities and be innovative in our approach. Bottom line on that is, yes, we need more housing. If we go to a community land trust model, which is something I'm very mindful of, there's opportunity there to build out more facilities in those type of areas. So the potential is there. We just got to have the willingness, and we just got to have the leadership. As I mentioned earlier, housing is a human right. We don't have enough. So what we have to figure out is how do we get there? And we're going to have to be intentional as leaders. You heard earlier about the shortfalls in the AHIP and funding coming into the AHIP funds. That's true. So how do you make up the delta, right? It can't be from just Amazon and from developers. We have to work with nonprofits. We're going to have to work with faith-based organizations. We have to work with philanthropists to bring those type of funds and outfits here to Arlington. So you're going to have to be creative. You're going to have to be innovative, because the old methodology and approach of doing business just is not working in Arlington anymore. Thank you.
All right, thank you, JD. Tony, do you need me to?
No need.
Okay, thank you.
So if we look at the cost of assisted living in Virginia, on average, it ranges around $50,000 to $55,000 a year. And those numbers are just really staggering, and certainly higher in the Arlington area. And so how we handle that has to be through increased resource allocation. And that's really the bottom line. I think that we need to provide more money towards AHIP so that we can have more development and specific development for assisted living facilities. I think that we need to look at affordable housing rates. That's something that has to be expanded. A relatively modest investment in that right now, and we need to look for ways to have assisted living services provided to those who want to stay or are capable of staying in their homes with some sort of auxiliary add-on services. So I think that all three of those options are ways that we as a community can work to recognize the value of our seniors and make sure that we fulfill our commitment to them in the last few years of their lives. So those are all things that I prioritize. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Maureen, do you need for me to repeat the question?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Once I get the microphone back, okay. Yeah, I think, so I'll show a little bit of what I do professionally, which is work on care work. And so I work on how do we get more supply into the care sector, both early childhood, but also family caregiving. One side of this is the facilities. We need more facilities, and it's great to say we all want more of it. It's a different thing to sit down and say, where is that going to go? How much is it? How are we going to get there? Those are really the details that I want to work on. But the flip side of that is also that we have to have workers who can staff our assisted living facilities. And we all know that care workers do not get paid what they should get paid for the work that they do. That is so vital. And in a place like Arlington, where it is so expensive to live, to attract care workers who are not getting paid enough is so difficult. And so we need to address both having the facilities, having the opportunities for people to find assisted living in Arlington, but we also need to make sure that we have affordability across the board so that the folks who care for us can stay in Arlington and can work in Arlington. And so it's really an ecosystem approach, right? You can't kind of fix one of these things without fixing the other. And that's why I'm a big advocate for this comprehensive plan and vision that moves us forward in all categories so that we can address everything all at once and make sure that each aspect comes together and fits in with the rest of the plan. I think that, one of my first jobs was in long-term care planning. We know that Medicaid and Medicare does not actually pay for long-term care the way that it should. And so that means that people are paying out of pocket, they're paying from their life savings. And we need to make sure that we have an ecosystem that actually works and supports people so that you're not spending down to your last dollar just to stay where you already live.
All right, thank you, Maureen. Susan?
So I think the question was how to make assisted living more affordable here in Arlington. And I think there are three ways to approach it. One is, like Maureen just said, on the actual supply and the housing itself. We have a relatively new rule called the accessory dwelling unit rules, which allow you to have multiple dwelling units within the same home so that you can rent out a basement or rent out a caregiver apartment or rent out your whole house and have a small care receiving apartment. So that is one area, and we need to expand that and make it more flexible. Another is really encouraging and allowing group care. So there's a number of national movements, including the greenhouse movement, which really focuses on bringing 4 to 12 elders together to share the assistance in a home. And our rules don't allow for that very easily right now. We have some homes like that for disabled, but we could expand that. And then the third is, as I mentioned earlier, having affiliated care networks that can push in. So Goodwin House has this effort, VHC and Inova may develop it over time, where they can provide the assisted living services where you are, rather than moving to where they are.
All right, thank you, Susan. And finally, Natalie?
Finally, I have three things on the list. One we already mentioned, which is funding and inventory. We don't have enough. This is a desperate need, not only in our community, but nationwide. We need more affordable healthcare. We need assisted living facilities across the board. I cannot tell you, I was just thinking about a family I've recently been working with that can't move and needs to move. And they need to go to an assisted living facility. And it's all about money. And it's hard, it is very sad. So it's inventory, it's getting more funds into AHIF. It's also staffing issues that's been taught, has been said earlier. I pulled this really interesting quote. 86% of Virginia's nursing homes and assisted living facilities said their workforce situation had gotten worse this year. That was a December 2022 study done by two of the Virginia Center for Assisted Living and Virginia Healthcare Association. And what it speaks to is the fact that there's staffing issues that we, the county, and others need to get behind and get on top of. I also want to just speak to one other thing about missing middle, AKA the density program that the county just passed. That in no way, shape, or form is going to help produce the type of housing, the type of assisted living facilities, the other types of affordable housing, and promote diversity that any of us are expecting. It's only going to create density. So I think it's important that we don't think of that program in that light and think of it as a density-only program, and that we really look at issues like this and tackle those specifically. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Natalie. So we're going to move on to another topic that's equally as important for our older adults in our community, and that has to do with transportation. So here's the question, and Tony, you will be the first one to answer. The question is, what transportation programs do you support to aid older adults, particularly those who have no car or who do not drive?
So transportation, I think, is incredibly critical for not just seniors, but across the board in our community. And as we move towards a carbon neutral society, massive increase in investment needs to happen. And so in terms of seniors, I think thinking about improvements on the bus system. I think we need to be thinking about improvements on Metro and increasing access to Metro. And I think we need to think about point-to-point transit. So in terms of buses, I think we need to increase the number of routes that we have currently. I think that I would like to see the elimination of fares. Right now, I think that charging cents for a trip for seniors just doesn't really make a lot of sense. I think that would be a positive step to increase the amount of ridership on the bus system. In terms of Metro access, we need to make sure that our seniors and folks across the board know how to use Metro, make sure that they have that and it's communicated, and resources that help get them to Metro are in place. And then when we talk about point-to-point transit options, making sure that folks know and they have the when and how to use those types of resources, so that if they need to go for some sort of medical procedure, they know that they have those options available. So those three would be the top priorities for me in terms of transportation for seniors. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tony. Maureen, did you need for me to repeat the question, or are you okay? You're good.
So yeah, on transportation, I think when it comes to our transit system as it was originally designed, it was designed around the 9 to 5 transit commute from point A to point B, from west to east, and then east back to west. And our lives have functionally changed, especially if you're an older adult, you may not be commuting at all anymore. And younger adults, I have to say, we're not commuting a whole lot either. So we need to really look at our routes and our transit system and make sure that we're touching the points where people live, but getting them to where they need to go. The senior loop is excellent, but I think more of our bus systems can be designed to get to community centers, to get to grocery stores, and to bring us from housing to the kind of amenities that we need, not just on a 9 to 5 schedule, but across the entire day. And so I think that's one of the big things, but additionally investing in the STAR program, which is the art alternative for those with mobility issues, is really important. I know that right now you have to schedule far in advance in order to use it, which is not really great for most people's lives. Maybe you know 2 or 3 days in advance that you're going to need to get somewhere, but maybe you don't. And you should still have mobility options, even if that's the case. And additionally, we need to really think about our sidewalks and safety. I know a lot of people live in walkable areas, but a walkable area by definition needs to be a safe walkable area, and not everything is, whether that's cracked sidewalks or the bricks that move, or it's pedestrian crossings that don't have lights and are not really well observed. I'm a young person and I have had several close calls just in the past few months. People do not respect the crosswalks, and so we need to really invest in safety in order to make sure that people who are in those walkable areas and have invested in that as a choice for their lifestyle actually feel safe walking.
All right, thank you, Maureen. Susan?
I won't belabor it because I think you've heard all of the crucial pieces, making sure that the bus system does the loop and is available to you all, but probably also to the whole community. So I would say actually starting with what we have done well in the past for our older adult community and expanding it in frequency and in ridership by encouraging the younger folks to be there.
And I agree, there's been a lot of great ideas and things that we all support up here. I will just say, when I was young, maybe like, it was last year, I think, when I was younger, I had a nonprofit I ran in Massachusetts, in Cambridge, Mass. Well, it was actually in Boston. We were living in Cambridge. And I had a team of volunteers from a retirement community that would come, like every other week to volunteer for me. And their retirement home provided the transportation. And it was awesome. And they were all in their 80s. Now I think of that as young. And but they were amazing. And they came and they really were very focused on getting that ride to come downtown. They went through the shops and they would come and visit with me for about 2 hours and volunteer. And I would love nothing more than to see that type of, transportation fluidity, affordability here in Arlington, so that we have older adults being able to get places for little costs, if not free. I think that's really important. It's really important for the quality of life for everyone. And it really would make a big impact.
Right. Thank you, Natalie. And Julie.
So yeah, I agree with a lot of what my colleagues have stated. Bottom line is we know that our seniors rely heavily on a lot of our county resources. You heard about the STAR program. We have the SCAT program also for our seniors. But it's something Natalie just mentioned in an innovative approach. I would love to see more collaboration between our youth and some of our seniors. Maybe we can work on some internship programs. Maybe we can get some of our college students coming in to help aid and assist. Nothing like sharing some wise counsel along the way, but to get our youth involved, some of our seniors here in the community, and give back, right? I think it's not us versus them, it's us working together. So programs like that, something to what Natalie just alluded to, I would fully support. Thank you.
All right, thank you, JD. So we've been hearing quite a bit already about the many good resources that we have in this county. And so now we're going to have a formal question about that. And we'll start again at the beginning with Maureen. And the question is this: how can the county best reach older adults to advise them about available services?
I think we need a better strategic communications process for the county writ large. There's so much information that I, as an engaged, motivated, English as my first language, digital native, still cannot find from the county, or will find one time and then can't find it again. And if I can't find it, I'm very confident that most kind of average consumers of information are not receiving that. And so we need to really break down and figure out what is going on currently, what is our ideal, and how do we bridge that gap? I think one of the biggest things when it comes to communication is layering our styles of communication, because there's, maybe one thing that is going to reach 10% of the population, maybe another thing that's going to reach 10% of the population, but it's kind of an overlap of 3%. We have to be okay with overlapping, because the more times you see something, the more likely you are to actually take it in and do something with it. And so I think really making sure that we have layered communication, whether that is layering mail and digital and email all together, whether that is, I'm a huge advocate for reforming our website so that it is actually navigable and useful. I think that we really need to look across the board at a bunch of different strategies, because we're going to get some percent of the population with each one, but we're not going to get 100% of people in any given communication strategy. So it's really about weaving it all together and making sure we meet people where they are, and don't expect them to come looking for us.
All right, thank you, Maureen. Susan, you need for me to?
Nope, I'm good. So
You're good.
how can we reach older adults so that they know what's going on? I think, a lot of the things we're doing now, but making sure it's multi-channel. So radio, certain programs perhaps especially, making sure we're distributing through Meals on Wheels and Neighborhood Villages and others that are touching our seniors. And then likewise, most of us, and seniors included, are spending some time at a grocery store, a pharmacy, or the doctor's office across a week. And so sharing information there. So just getting it in front of you so that you can see it a few times and think about it.
All right, thank you, Susan. Natalie?
the first and foremost way to communicate, I think, with older adults is to go to where we are, well, where we all are. I mean, go from here to Culpepper Gardens, go to the Jefferson, go to Sunrise, go to where people are. That is the most important thing. It is also really important to give really clear, good information that's comprehensive about what is being offered. What are the services that are out there? How do we get involved? What are the, who can I call? Who can I talk to? I don't know about you all, but I love having a real person on the phone to talk to. I really think that's important. I am very frustrated with prompts that lead nowhere. So I want, especially for, well, for anyone, but I really want somebody who's going to actually navigate me to where I need to go. And I think that's really critical. So again, it's where people are, and it's also navigating, it's also giving people real response. And that real response to me is a person. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. JD.
Yeah, I like that personal connection. You know, my mother, bless her, she's 71 years old down in South Carolina, and I try to get her to get on Facebook and do things online. And she don't want to deal with that. But to what we talk about meeting people where they are, you hear that a lot. It's easier said than done. It's a multifaceted approach, right? And something I want to do if elected to the county board is I want to speak. I want to sit down with our deputy county manager for community engagement. I want to figure out their methodology and their approach and how do they go about targeting and reaching people in our neighborhood. And being in NAACP, I know how to meet people. I grew an organization from 175 people to 1,000 in a matter of 4 years. I know how to get to people. But I think our strategy is probably back to something I said earlier, old methodology and approach, whether it's snail mail, whether it's email, whether it's radio, whether it's TV, whether it's coming in forms like this, going to the churches, right? That's meeting people where they are. And I don't think Arlington has done a good job doing that. And if you elect to the board, we're going to do a strict evaluation of it and fix it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JD. And Tony?
Sure. First, I'd like to say that I've got a strong respect for seniors and their dedication to lifetime learning, particularly here in Arlington. Many seniors I know are actually pretty savvy. Folks know how to use Facebook, how to use the website. I personally have had problems with many of Arlington websites, but I don't know that that's because I'm 34 years old. So strong respect for them. That said, I do think that personal touch is incredibly important. And I think that a senior ambassador program would be incredibly valuable to help increase the amount that seniors use our web resources and gain access to the many services that we are providing. DC has a senior ambassador program, and it's very effective. It provides individuals to help seniors navigate the process, navigate through the system. And I think that we would benefit immensely from having a similar program here for Arlington seniors. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Tony. So we have one last question that we will be asking everyone here, and we'll start with Susan on this one. And here's the question. What are your ideas about getting more diversity and inclusion on the Commission on Aging and other county boards and commissions that affect older adults? Start with you, Susan.
Absolutely. It's a great question and one that we are grappling with across our county. We have so many different languages and so many different cultures that to literally to hear and understand each other, we need more translation services and we need sort of different ways of inviting people in. And so I think one of the things that we would want to make sure is looking across the commissions, do we have different nationalities and backgrounds represented? Do we have translation available to make sure that you're able to access all of that information? And are we making the invitation? It's not everyone feels invited, depending on your cultural background, to make sure that we are really reflecting the diversity of our whole community.
All right.
And I couldn't agree more. We need to make sure to ensure that all the commissions that are out there are representing the community. And that pertains also to older Americans, to older residents. We need to make sure that we have a span. It's not just young folks or people who are, I'll just use different terms, Xers or middle-aged or boomers. We need to make sure we have a wide range because everybody contributes. And by having a diverse group of folks on a commission, everybody benefits. And that includes age. And I really do feel on the commissions that older residents are big contributors from their experience, from their life experience, what they've gone through. I think that marries really well. Youth, middle age, that we have a wide range. So I think that would be something that I would really want to focus on. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. JD.
Yeah, that's a really good question. We've heard a lot of folks say representation matters. And the county, once again, has failed us when we talk about our commissions. I can count on to both hands the number of times members in our county has come to me as president and said, JD, we need somebody to serve on this commission. Well, why'd you come to me? Because I'm the leader of a historically Black institution called the NAACP. They could not figure out how to find people in 230,000 folks here in Arlington. And that gave me great pause. But how you do that is something we've heard earlier. You meet people where they are. You need to go on a roadshow and talk about the commissions, talk about the work that they do, right? Because right now, if you're reserved to go on a website or to figure out what's going on, that's not going to work. If you want to go and get your friends on a commission, that's not going to work. And I'll tell you, there's this lack of trust in our community between individuals who feel that folks that are on commissions are just the friends of people on the county board. We need to cast a wide net across our community, bring in our seasoned citizens, bring in our elders. When I look out this audience right now, what's beautiful about it is you're a microcosm of our community. We have some young, we have some old, all ages, right? Black, brown, everyone in between. And that's how our commissions need to look. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JD. And Tony?
Yeah, I'm gonna emphasize recruitment. In my experience on commissions, what I have found is the way that recruitment tends to happen is a passive relational effort where somebody happens to know somebody else and says, hey, you'd be great on this commission, you should join the commission. And then they do a couple of functionary interviews and then they're appointed. And what happens if you pursue that de facto strategy is you end up with a bunch of people who all look the same because generally people associate with people who are very similar. They don't go outside of their comfort zone. So we need to expand beyond that and strategically recruit people into commissions. So rather than being passive about it, actively looking at data, survey data of underrepresented groups across the county and make sure that those folks get recruited to serve on commissions, because that is the only way to break out of the mold of the passive recruitment where everybody ends up looking the same. That's something that I was really involved with as president of the Rotary Club. We have a surprisingly diverse club here in Arlington, when Rotary tends to be a relatively less diverse organization. And I've been very excited by the fact that we're able to incorporate a wide range of ages, races, nationalities, religions into that organization. And I think the whole organization has really benefited immensely from it. So that's something that I would bring to the county board. That general vision and mentality of active strategic recruitment of members of county commissions, absolutely critical.
Thank you, Tony. And Maureen, you have the final word for this question. Happy to repeat it, but I think you're good.
I have them all printed out,
Sorry.
but I appreciate it. Yeah, so I think we've heard a lot about active recruitment. I just want to talk a little bit about my ideas in terms of what that would actually look like, because I think we're right. If we just rely on kind of the passive, then we are going to continue to get what we've traditionally had. I have never once seen commission openings listed on RL Now or any of our local newspapers. I've never once seen them posted on a non-government website. I've never heard about them through a community group that has shared them. We're all engaged in so many different ways, and there are places and there are opportunities where the county could be putting that information out there to a much wider audience. People who are not thinking to themselves, I have this issue and I want to go find the commission that handles this issue. Because right now, those are the most engaged people and those are who we're getting, but they're not necessarily representative of the whole community. And so just casting a wider net so that people even know that there's opportunities to be on commissions, because I think many people do not understand this process, and we need to kind of lower that barrier to entry and say, here's information, maybe you're not ready to be on a commission, but just here's information about what the commissions are and what they do and how you would get on one if you did want to in the future. And then build and maintain those relationships, because it might not be that someone shows up on day one ready to jump in and serve. Maybe some people are, but not a lot of people. And so really kind of maintaining relationships over time and having informed people that we can ask when they feel ready to step up, because this is a service relationship and it is a commitment and it is time. And so I think the other thing that we really need to look into is potentially compensating people for their time. That is one of the most statistically proven ways to increase diversity and public participation is by compensating people. Because maybe for you, $25 isn't a whole lot or meaningful for your time, but to some people, that's the difference between being able to show up and not being able to show up because they have to go to work. So it's something that we need to really consider is the overall process. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So that completes the 7 questions that we had prepared. We have time for maybe 2 questions here. And okay, so this is the first question from the audience, and we'll start with Natalie responding. The LGBTQ 55 plus programs have been phased out. How will you address this need? Natalie.
Thank you for that question, and bring them back, because that is woefully, that is unbelievable, and it's something that would be that's missing, something that needs to be brought back in. I'm actually not aware that they were actually totally phased out. I don't know whose question was that, or somebody from the audience, but it's a good question. I appreciate it, and I think it's a real big glaring that would be a need that would have to be addressed. And I would also welcome, going along those lines, anything else that people would feel as for the next county board in 2024, it'd be really important for other folks to also give their suggestions or recommendations for what is missing in that 55 plus program menu, because there is a lot of programs that are being offered, but there are things that are obviously missing that need to be replaced with, brought back in.
Thank you, Natalie. JD?
Well, I was not aware that program was gone, and with capital, with Pride Month being next month, we need to get that thing back up and running. So if I'm on the county board, yes, we will get it back. But what I really want to understand is, why did it go away? And see, I want to analyze what happened there and what was the rationale by removing that program, because our brothers and sisters and everyone in the LGBTQ plus community have rights as well. And in a place called Arlington, where we say we're inclusive, we're diverse, and we're welcoming, to remove that for some odd reason was almost dereliction of duty. So I want to figure out what happened. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, JD. Tony?
Yeah, I think that we need to reaffirm our commitment to the LGBTQ community here in Arlington. I think that oftentimes we take it for granted because we are a very progressive county. The other day, I was at a Democratic fundraiser event, and there was an act of discrimination to one of my colleagues on Spaces, and it was an incredible eye-opener to me, because in that group of folks, I personally usually feel incredibly safe, and I feel like we're all family. But I think as a county, we can't just assume that folks are as open-minded as you might like them to be, and we need to continue to put resources towards that. I think that our talk on commissions is a relevant point, and I don't know that we need a commission on commissions. It would be very Arlington, But we do need to be actively and strategically bringing diverse voices into government, and commission work is a prime way that happens. So thank you.
Right, thank you, Tony. Maureen?
Yeah, so I'm a member of Equality Arlington, which is a new LGBT advocacy group that has started this year. And our services for LGBTQ folks here in Arlington are really not great. A lot of it is telling folks to go to DC. And DC has a huge LGBTQ population. They have incredible resources, and absolutely people should go there if that is what they want. But we also need something here for us, because folks in Arlington should be able to connect with folks in Arlington. But we do not have that when it comes to healthcare services, when it comes to community services. We have, no real infrastructure when it comes to that. And so I think we need to take a look across the age range, figuring that out, because it's a unique population. We have unique experiences. And I also think that in particular, there's a lot of mentorship that happens in the queer community between older folks and younger folks who have kind of gone through different phases and different experiences. So having ways to connect, ways to kind of share across what different generations have gone through would be really meaningful and important, and has helped guide folks historically for many, many years.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Susan?
Great. So I think on that question, first I'd want to verify the facts and make sure that we really did lose it. It's not just on hiatus because someone's on sabbatical or something to that effect. But it brings up a point that's pretty important, which is many of our programs, especially our Parks and Rec programs, have been fairly organic over the years, and they're very individually driven. So it's not always a strategic plan that the board is aware of, that the county manager may even be aware of. It's more individual personalities who've done great things within various communities. And while that's awesome, when people retire, those programs end. And that may be what happened here. It certainly has happened with a lot of our youth programming, and we trace back some of the most recent substance abuse catastrophes where children who died in school or out of school. They were previously served by programs that went away. And so that it is something that we need to look at as a community, make sure that we have a plan for those programs and make sure that they survive and improve across time, even as people come and go across their careers.
Okay, so we have time for one more question, and the question is, and we will start with JD on this one. And it's, why isn't Lover Run Senior Center available by bus like other centers?
Thank you for the question, because Arlington has a transit issue, and we've been knowing that for a number of years. So when we talk about transportation here in Arlington, if I'm on the county board, that's something I will look into. It doesn't make any sense for facilities such as Lover Run not to have adequate accessibility by metro for our seniors to get to. There are some facilities, however, throughout Arlington that have that convenience. But that just talks to the larger issues of something where we have not took a holistic view at our transportation across Arlington County. We have this first mile, last mile issue when it comes to transit. If you go down to the other parts of Arlington, like Drew Community Center, where I spent a lot of time in Green Valley, they have the same issue with seniors trying to get down there. So it's not complex. It's just, it's not that we don't have a lack of resources. We have a lack of will, and we have a lack of folks that have empathy and want to take care of our seniors and ultimately our community. So we need to do a better job there and work on Lover Run.
Okay. Thank you, JD. Tony?
Yeah, I think fundamentally it gets down to ridership. In terms of bus transit, we need to massively increase ridership here in the county, and there are a variety of ways we can do that. First and foremost, I think we should eliminate bus fares. That was a very effective way to boost ridership. Saw a little bit after the pandemic. We look at other municipalities in Virginia, Richmond, they eliminated bus fares, saw a huge boost in ridership. Once you have more use of the resource, it becomes easier to justify increased routes. When you get more increased routes, it becomes much more effective and efficient for people to use the bus. And so you have a virtuous cycle that develops of increasing ridership because it is less time consuming for people to use. So I think fundamentally that is something that we need to do. I think that we need to look at engaging our youth to make sure that they are getting and starting to use public transit. I would like to see synergistic overlaps with the education system to move folks around and get them, like high school students using the bus. I'll wrap it up here. But yes, generally increase ridership.
Maureen.
Yeah, to the direct question of why. I'm guessing it's because it's considered a walkable location for multiple bus lines on the metro. And I think that kind of goes into our like painting with a very broad brush when it comes to walkability. It may be walkable for someone like me who is fit and young and able to walk pretty quickly and safely. But when we're thinking about transportation to a senior center, I think we need to have a different definition of what walkable really means. And have services that actually align with the population that we're trying to serve. Just having one definition for everything is not going to get the targeted services that we need. So that is the direct answer to the why. And we really do need to think about that comprehensively and holistically across the county because Lover Run is not the only community center with this issue. It is not the only service that has this issue. And so really thinking about, targeting what we're doing and being intentional about it when we do it is really important to make sure that we're accurately and adequately serving folks in the community.
Okay. Thank you, Maureen. Susan.
I would just add that it's probably yet another perfect example of silos within our community. So I would bet that when that center was offline and being built, it fell off the data list because there was no data. It fell off the planning list because there was no data. And I actually this morning was just talking with DHS about they've moved the program to Lover Run and they're confused why no one's showing up for a program that they used to show up for. And and so it's that you've got a DHS silo, you've got a transportation silo, you've got a parks and recreation operations and capital silo. And what it takes to pull those together in a very large and complex county is very, very strong leadership. And that starts with a county board that manages the county manager to deliver for all of you.
Thank you, Susan. And finally, Natalie.
And to wrap it up, because I agree with much of what I've heard on the panel, I just would say that it really points to, and first of all, love Lover Run, definitely bus service there and other places that are lacking that bus service. Definitely needed. Play pickleball there. I've been there for many programs. But I think on the larger sort of looking big picture, the county really needs better strategic planning. We need comprehensive planning, not just on transportation, but on housing, on a whole host of issues. And as Susan just said, the silos are a real problem. We need to break those down. We need to, as JD said, be more holistic in how we look at the county in general, how we govern, how we manage. And I think the next county board is really going to have to, in 2024, really look at it with a lens that's much more holistic. And I'll just point out a very specific example in my neighborhood. I have a sidewalk project that we had under the old neighborhood conservation project. We have 2 blocks of beautiful sidewalk, but we don't have it going all the way up to the metro, which is what was needed. Because the rest, it was ridiculous. And one of my neighbors called it the sidewalk to nowhere. And we also wanted crosswalks and traffic, calming measures. We didn't get that. That's really comprehensive. That's what's called comprehensive, looking at things with a bigger lens. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. We are in the final throes. First of all, I think I'm supposed to announce that the questions that we were not able to answer today for the panelists will be sent to each of you for a response. So I want to make sure that you get that. Also, that each of the candidates would like to share their materials with the audience, and they'll be available at the door. So with that, keeping the rotation, we're going to start with Tony for a 1-minute closing statement.
That's right. I'll wrap it up here. So I've really enjoyed being here with you all today. I've enjoyed hearing my colleagues' ideas as well. And the beauty of being in a Democratic primary is I agree with many of them. One thing that hasn't received a lot of coverage today is the commercial office vacancy rate. That number is at record highs. And what happens if that number keeps going up is we receive reduced revenues coming in, and we will not have the dollars to fund many of these awesome programs. I think anyone elected to the county board needs to make this a top priority. We need to work to expand the allowable uses of office space to make sure that space gets filled by more businesses. We need to work to bring in more educational institutions for top users of office space in the county. We need to work with AED to bring in and recruit more tech companies. We are a major tech hub. We're like 3 in tech workers behind San Francisco and New York. We got to leverage that. So it's all great to have fantastic ideas. We got to have the dollars to pay for it. We've talked about some fantastic stuff. That's something that I would prioritize if elected. I got a strong plan for Arlington, and I would appreciate if you were voted for county board. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. So pass it back over to Maureen. We have to keep going around.
I'm gonna be the
Yes, sir.
Thank you all so much for spending time with us today. My name is Maureen Coffey. I hope to earn your support in this election. I really do think that so much of what we're experiencing in Arlington as older adults and as younger people is really coinciding right now and is kind of hitting this interesting intersection when it comes to housing and affordability, when it comes to transportation, when it comes to wanting services from the county where we can connect with each other and build community again coming through the pandemic. I think we really are going through a lot of the same things. And when it comes to why did I jump into this? It's really because I think we deserve to answer those questions. I work in public policy professionally. I'm at the Center for American Progress, doing social safety net planning, doing workforce development planning. And I want to bring that detailed and very specific policy-oriented experience to the county board to push us to get serious about answering these questions. I've been involved in the community on the board of the Civic Federation, on the board of the Young Dems. I've heard from a lot of different constituencies in Arlington. And I really do believe that we can come together and figure this out, but we need leadership that's going to push that and who knows how to do it from a professional standpoint. Thank you so much, and I hope to earn your vote.
All right, Susan?
Great, I'm Susan Penningham. Thank you all for being here. I hope that you will consider me as your #1 candidate on or before June 20th. I'll bring common sense and deeply experienced leadership to the county board and would be honored to serve you. I have served as a volunteer here in Arlington for over 25 years, leading some of our land use development processes for schools, also one of our founding members of Joint Facilities Advisory Commission. I know how we break it and we fix it, and how we need to improve as a community to work together. And then professionally, with my engineering background, but also 20 years of executive leadership in the federal government, in the private sector, and here at home in the nonprofit sector, I know how to get things done, bring our community together, manage our staff, and deliver value for our community. So check out susanforarlington.com, and I'll have these in the back so that you don't have to remember. We'd love to have you as volunteers and certainly your #1 vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Natalie?
And the second to last closer. Thank you all for being here today. I know it takes a lot to take time out of your busy days, come here in the afternoon and listen to 6 candidates and talk about a whole host of issues. I have years of experience, both in the community level, executive level. I am a small business person. I have a wide range of experience which will help me to hit the ground running day one. I have the commitment, I have the drive, and I have the energy. And that said, I also will tell it like it is. What you see is what you get with me. And I think that's really important for the county board right now. I'm all about making sure that the county board is more responsive and more transparent. And that's why I got into this race. And I just want to leave with, and I'll leave before my philosophy. But if you want to know more, my bio, natalieforarlington.com. I also have information as well. But my philosophy is this: I love Arlington. I wouldn't be running if I didn't love Arlington. Been here 32 years, raised 3 kids here, all who went to the.
Okay.
Oh, well, anyway, My philosophy is this, we have things we need to fix, but we also have things we need to preserve, and I think that's really important. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
And JD?
Do I get a little extra time?
No.
No. It's such a pleasure to be with you this afternoon, and I could spend all afternoon speaking to you because this is your moment. This is when you get to look these candidates in the eye and try to figure out at the end of the day, do you trust him or not? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Time and time again, you've seen candidates come before you and say perhaps the right thing, whatever needs to be told at that time. But my background, my 30 years of experience, my boots on the ground, what I've done in Arlington County over the past 14 years are tangible. You can see my results and we can talk to them. We talk about mental health, we talk about the environment, we talk about environmental sustainability. Everything cross cuts, right? We need serious leadership on the county board. We need to stop playing politics with people's lives because this is real business. We need more than just single issue candidates. When you look at my card, I'll give it to you after we're done here, you'll see who I'm endorsed by. A number of folks, Senator Favola, workers unions, Moms and Men Action, Sierra Club, Greater Washington, the list goes on. But they're not going to be sitting in the seat. Hopefully I will. And that's your seat, not my seat. I hope you can vote for me, 1 or 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JD. So I want to thank all of the candidates, and I am going to turn the microphone back over to Linda Kelly. Closing remarks.
All I can say is that I am really thrilled. I'm thrilled of your frankness, of your willingness to come and be with us, and to the audience for sharing your time and your interest and your concerns. And I am looking forward to June 20th, as I'm sure you are too. And I know all the folks here are because this is a polling place. So take care. And as Cheryl mentioned, in the back of the room, the candidates are going to hand materials out. If you'd like some on your way out the door, please make sure to get some and read them carefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you.